What's going on, everybody? Brad Abbott here, and welcome to episode 10 of Gear Stories. If you remember, back in episode 5, we took a quick tour of my humble home studio. A lot has changed since episode 5. I've made some changes and updates, so I wanted to go ahead and show you guys around again. Welcome to episode 10. Let's get right into it. I think the biggest change since episode 5 is that we got rid of my stripped down acoustic drum set. That used to stand right here, and it took up quite a bit of space, because keeping in mind, you have to be able to get behind the drum set as well as play it, and you have to keep the cymbals kind of away from the walls, and there was just a lot of compromises made to accommodate the drum set. And I'm not really that good at playing drums, nor do I do it very often, so it made sense for that to go by the wayside. So there is no longer a drum set set up in here. It is now in studio storage, which we will get to in a minute. Moving the drum set allowed me to move the amps over here and effectively make this whole section of the studio where the work gets done, opening up this wall completely, and this is now my set for the videos, which you've seen in the Worn Out Shoes song stories and in the Bill Withers late night sessions. Right here is the Fender DeVille. It is a tube combo amp, and that is a big part of my electric guitar sound, in conjunction with the Boss GT100. The Boss GT100 is a new addition. This is a multi-effects processor, and I use it in manual mode. Basically, I have different effects set up on these 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a great piece of equipment. I believe there's an updated version of it out now, but I scored this used for a great deal, and I'm very happy with it. I run the amp right at the edge of breakup, so if I play lightly, it's a more clean tone, and if I dig in harder, I get the classic tube drive sound, and the Fender DeVille is awesome for that. I am in love with that amp. It's been with me for probably about 8 years now. It has served quite well. Moving on from the Fender DeVille, we have the acoustic amp, which I use as a backline amp for the open mic nights. That just makes everything go a lot smoother, and it also gives the artists more control over their sound. I let them kind of tune the knobs as they want to on the acoustic amp, and then that's run via the line out into a Fender Passport PA system. I'll also be showing you guys that when we get into studio storage. So moving on, freeing up this wall allowed me the space to put 2 guitar racks side by side. This is a Hercules rack. It is foldable, and it also allows you the option to add more of these horseshoes, expanding it up to a 7 guitar rack. Now, when it says it's expandable up to a 7 guitar rack, I have a pretty strong hunch that that's talking about 7 electric guitars. It looks to me like you can only fit 5 acoustic guitars on that rack comfortably, but that is more than enough, and the Hercules racks are a really awesome product. Over here we have a Proline rack. If we're being honest, this rack pisses me off. It's incredibly difficult to get your guitars to stand on there the way they should. Oftentimes, they'll fall back randomly, even when they are on there the way they're supposed to be. And getting them on and off, you often bump them off of other ones. Now, granted, that does come down partially to carelessness or clumsiness, but for how much it costed, they could have definitely spaced things out a lot better. I don't recommend the Proline rack, but these Hercules racks are incredible. Definitely go with one of those if you can. So let's go ahead and take a look at the workstation. In most of today's studios, especially home studios, the brain of the operation is the computer. In my case, it's a MacBook Pro running PreSonus's Studio One Professional version 3. I got into Studio One because I bought some other PreSonus products. When I first started out, I was using an audio box USB. It came with a version of Studio One that you would normally have to pay for, but was free because I bought the PreSonus audio box. That came with Studio One Artist, and it was just incredibly easy to use. I got used to Studio One, and I decided to upgrade to Professional. I have never, not one time, experienced a crash using Studio One. I've also used Pro Tools and GarageBand, and both of those, while I didn't have too many issues with GarageBand, I did have a lot of issues with Pro Tools. Did not like it. Studio One has served me incredibly well. It's very user-friendly, very easy to learn. Everything is where you would think it would be, especially once you get used to it. I can't say enough about PreSonus's Studio One. I have since grown from the 2-channel audio box USB days, and to accommodate that, I moved on to the Studio Live AR16 USB. You'll see that I have multiple things already connected to the mixer that allows me to just come on in and start recording whenever I feel the urge. We got the vocal mic here. There's a pop filter that's kind of out of the way on it, and there are other cables scattered through and ran behind the guitar racks to be organized. But I can just grab a microphone, grab a cable end, plug the microphone in, and it's already plugged in on the mixer end. I'm ready to roll. All I gotta do is turn on the mixer, flip the computer open, and we're recording. Going through to the studio monitors, these are KRK Rocket Series. Now, Pro Audio Star had a sale on these KRK monitors, and I had no idea KRK was a Gibson product until I got them shipped to my house. I opened up the main box they were in, and I saw the monitor boxes, and there's the KRK logo, and right under it, it says, "By Gibson." I did accidentally buy a Gibson product. There it is. All of that being said, while I don't support Gibson for the way they are as a company, these are incredible. They sound great, the bass response is there, and they are just as loud as my home theater system that I have set up downstairs. Very happy with the quality of the product. I just wish the company behind it wasn't such a bully of a company. So over here, we have the Nectar Impact LX49. This is a MIDI controller, which means it doesn't have any sounds built into it in and of itself. This is a controller for a computer software. When I go into Studio One with this plugged in, this will control any virtual instruments that I need it to. Up here, there are pads for drums, and obviously down here is keys for things like piano sounds, strings, etc. This is an actual learner's keyboard. This is a Yamaha keyboard. It is good enough for learning on, but it's not quite gig worthy in my opinion, but it does the job. I got this with the intention of using it much similarly to the way that I use this one. However, it doesn't quite function very well in that way, so it is now here for me to eventually one day learn how to play keys. I definitely want to do that. I just haven't really had the time, and I'm more often than not, when I come up in the studio, I'm trying to write a song, and therefore I'm grabbing a guitar, which I already know how to play. So having gotten rid of the drum set, that allowed me to move the guitar racks from over here to over there, freeing up this entire wall. So now this is used as my set. When I do a late night sessions video or a song stories video, this is where I am. This is the backdrop, the studio foam, and it's been working incredibly well so far. I have a Taylor guitar stool here and a Meinl cajon. This is fairly new. I got this a couple weeks ago after I broke the faceplate of my other Meinl cajon. This one's ported though. It was a little more expensive, but the bass response on it is incredible. Over here, we have a Honeywell humidifier. I've talked in other episodes of Gear Stories that focus on acoustic guitars about how important it is to keep your guitars in a humidity controlled environment. Especially with acoustic guitars, if they're too dry, the tops will kind of cave in, dry out, and that will cause surface cracks on the soundboard of the acoustic guitar, which is the front wood. And if it's too damp in the air, if the humidity level is too high, you will get top swelling, which can lead to bridge lift. If you watch the Gear Stories video of the Taylor 210E, you'll see humidity or lack of humidity, dryness cracks in my Taylor 210. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to studio storage. So in here is where I keep everything for the open mic nights and for running sound. A lot of you guys know I host open mics at Bella Terra Vineyards. This is the Fender Passport that I use for that. There's something to be said about the convenience of a PA system that clips onto itself. So you got your two speakers here. They come right off like that. There's your mixer / amp. And then in the back, you've got storage right here for 2 speaker cables and a power cable. You could probably also fit a couple mics back here. And then I also have a backup Fender Passport just in case anything goes wrong with this one. The backup is a bit smaller, but it still has a very big sound. I will also use this as the primary system for smaller rooms. Over here we got 2 tripod stands. I try to run at least 2 angles on each video. That's what those are for. The MXL mic, that goes on all of the acoustic guitars when they get mic'd. Over here we have a custom PA system, custom spelled with a K. That is a name brand. It wasn't custom built. Custom is the name of the company. And here is the snare drum protected by an amp case. There are cymbals up here. There's a congo or a conga or whatever the hell that thing is, bass drum pedal, and a whole lot of guitar cases because I have a whole lot of guitars. And then this is where I keep all of my straps. Beyond that, let's go ahead and wrap up with some new additions to the family. So while I've always loved music from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, I recently really fell in love with Rosanna by Toto. That led me to get this. This is a Jackson JS34Q. It is part of their Dinky series. And I needed something with a Floyd Rose after hearing how incredible Rosanna is and actually paying attention to it. So Rosanna has some incredible guitar parts on it, and they use a tremolo, and I needed something with a nice tremolo. This is not the first guitar I've owned with a trem, but all of my other guitars up until getting this were hardtails. The 2 Schecters, the Fender. The Strat actually isn't a hardtail, but I do have it blocked. Another new addition to the family. So this guitar is a lot of firsts for me. This is a Gretsch Streamliner. I went to Main Street Music, which is a beautiful music store in Irwin, PA. I was looking specifically for something with P90s, and this was hanging on the wall. Gold hardware, P90 pickups, beautiful matte finish, and a Bigsby, and a semi-hollow. I've never owned something with P90s, I've never owned a semi-hollow, and I've never owned a Bigsby. It was 3 firsts for me, all in one. I had to grab it. Ever since, I've been very happy with it, even though there were a couple flaws when I first bought it, which Main Street Music did address for me. Thank you, guys. And this thing is awesome. It sounds good. It's mean as hell. It's really loud, and I love the unique sound of the P90s and having the beauty of that matte red finish and the semi-hollow and the gold hardware. There's just really something to be said about the look of this instrument and the sound of this instrument. And it's actually got one custom feature on it. Normally these guitars come with standard die-cast tuners. However, these are upgraded to Grover locking tuners, which really helps with the Bigsby. That's pretty much it. That's the updated home studio tour for Gear Stories episode 10. I appreciate you guys coming along for the ride. Be sure to click the subscribe button here on YouTube. That really helps me out. You can also find me on all major forms of social media at Brad Abbott Music and at bradabbott.music.com, where you can get in touch with all of my work. I just released last week a acoustic version of Worn Out Shoes. Prior to that, I released an acoustic version of Vivian. You can also catch full band versions of those songs on the full-length album, How Are You, which is at that website as well. Thank you guys again for checking out the video. As always, I love you guys, and I hope to see you in the next one.